I ask Beth Fager with the Riverfront Authority to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the May 21st, 2015 morning meeting for the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair of the County Commission, also representing District 2. Joining me today is Commissioner Bob Archer, representing District 3. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Shelley Bueller, representing District 1. Good morning. Madam Clerk, if we could start with our first item.
Item 1, proclamations, presentations. Presentation by the Riverfront Authority.
I recognize we have Pat Downs and Beth Fager here from the Riverfront Authority to give us an update on the work that they've been doing.
Well, thank you very much for having us this morning. We are excited to let you know what's happening with the riverfront and where we are right now, because recently some very exciting things have happened with funding of the levee repairs, and that lets us move forward a little bit. I'm mostly going to defer to Pat Downs today because he does have a PowerPoint and he's our expert, and while he's in town, I think it's a perfect time to be able to share the information with you. Pat is from Oklahoma City. I know he is one of the leading experts in riverfront development in the whole country. And those of you who might have been to Oklahoma City know what has been accomplished there. Pat is serving our Riverfront Authority as a consultant, and he's really been involved since the very early days of it, even making recommendations on drafting the legislation that created our authority. So he came up very early on, 2003 or 4, and was at that point very enthusiastic about the opportunities for our river with its placement and where it is in the community. So he's been a cheerleader for a number of years, and now he's on board with us, and I would just like to call on Pat Downs.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairperson and honorable commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I very much appreciate the invitation to present, if I can manage this. And I will say, it was probably about 12 years ago when I was first invited to come to Topeka by the Greater Chamber, simply to determine whether or not there was much hope or much presence here for a riverfront redevelopment effort. And I will say from that moment on, I've continued to be pleasantly surprised by the unfolding opportunities here in Topeka and Shawnee County. Well, let's see here.
Pat, go to that.
Maybe I'll do this. There we go. Why do you do a riverfront project? Well, there's the ability to create economic development opportunities. You can create outdoor recreation, healthy lifestyles, get your citizens the opportunity to provide healthy outlets for exercise and community involvement, and then also to, in essence, rebrand a community. There's few large projects with the power to quite literally reimagine an entire community. But when a community takes a river that may have been ignored or neglected for decades, perhaps in some cases centuries, and chooses to reclaim it through some very specific activities, what it does is it sends a very strong signal out to the broader national and even international community that this is a city that believes in itself, believes in its future, and is absolutely committed to kind of rebranding itself, repositioning itself in terms of its strategic positioning. Probably the most important thing, and Beth certainly referred to it here just briefly, within the last month, in fact almost exactly a month ago, it was announced that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has agreed to fund, it's roughly a $29 million project on the Kansas River levee system. This is a series of levee repairs that are required in order to bring your levee system here up to today's engineering standards. The river was reviewed by the Corps of Engineers over a period of time, and it was determined that there were some deficiencies in the design. Those design deficiencies not only created some problems in terms of danger, hazard of flooding, but it also had the very undesirable effect of requiring flood insurance in certain areas that it never was before. And certainly that can have a very negative, deleterious impact on a business to suddenly be required to acquire and pay for very expensive flood insurance. So the fact that the Corps has come in, it's about a $29 million scope. The first of the work we hope will be under contract before September 30th, and that's the Corps' date, not ours. The federal government's on a September fiscal year, so they need to get the first piece of this under contract within the current fiscal year, and so that's one of their projects. And here's an idea of the of the areas that are potentially impacted. You can see this isn't just. A lot of people think, well, the levee repairs, that's only important to an area just a few feet away from the river, and that's really not true. There are vast numbers of square miles that are impacted should those levee systems not perform as they were designed and as they should. So there will be work done. The first of the work will begin at the Oakland unit, as the Corps calls it, and there will be separate projects let for each of the units that will be repaired. That's not in any way because of funding difficulty, and that question comes up frequently. The Corps is committed to, excuse me, about $9 million in this first phase worth of work. But the fact that they're not going to start on the second phase until the first phase is done is simply a matter of engineering and a matter of public safety. You would not want to have breaches in your levee system all up and down the community at the same time, because if there were floodwaters projected, you would not have time to sufficiently go back and prepare them for an eventual flood, even during construction. So the fact that the project will be done in phases is simply one of public safety, not at all of a lack of commitment on the part of the federal government for your funding. And kudos, by the way, to the city of Topeka for having the restraint and I think wisdom to put aside the local match that's required to make this happen. It's about a $9 million commitment on the part of the city government, and they have, with great discipline, socked that money away each year in anticipation of this rather major project. So all of that led to the Corps' decision to come. And again, levees are kind of out of sight, out of mind. Not many people see them, not many people think about them, and they never really are a problem, of course, until they are. And by that point, it's a little too late to turn the clock back and think about it then. What's done is done. So the fact that your community is stepping up and making a difference now and working very closely with the Corps of Engineers is a very huge step in the right direction. And this mentioned that the Hallmark plant departure was probably the first warning call, because it was, among others, the fact that they were facing a serious extra charge for flood insurance that led them to an understanding that their facility here, their plant here that employed several hundred people, was no longer going to be cost effective. And so sadly those jobs were lost. So by stepping in and taking care of the levee system now, it will not only protect lives but also protect jobs, and I think that's certainly important to this body. While we're at it, while the Corps of Engineers is working on the levee system, there are a couple of extra projects that we think would be very timely and very cost effective if addressed simultaneous with the levee work. One of them is that we would like the Corps of Engineers studied back in 2007 the possibility of an additional downstream weir, a low water dam, that would create a river lake through your downtown area of the river, so between the two bridges, for example, the Topeka and Kansas bridges. So that permanent body of water, that kind of permanent river lake, the downstream weir would probably go around Sardu, but it would create a permanent body of water that would be available permanently for recreation, for economic development. Certainly a permanent body of water is much more attractive to economic development interests. I do a little economic development work around the country. I see a lot of interest in waterfront condos, riverfront apartments, but very little in front of a ditch. I have yet to see real estate promoted as beautiful ditch front apartments. This doesn't have quite the same ring. And then maintenance roads. While we're at it, we would like to have the ability of people to run, walk, jog, ride a bicycle along the levee system and connect that with your rather marvelous county-wide trails network that's very popular with people here in town and I think gaining in popularity. So we would propose that the Corps of Engineers, while they are building the levee system, build what they refer to as maintenance roads, but the maintenance roads, they are paved and they are trails, and they will even stripe them for use by bicyclists and keep the bicyclists separate from the walkers and so forth. So we are on that as well. This is actually an image I found on the internet, excuse me, of your downtown from the north bank of the river, and I'm not sure exactly in what year that was taken. Those of you familiar with your own skyline better than I perhaps would maybe have a guesstimate as to when that is, but it gives you the idea of what that permanent body of water would do in terms of the aesthetics in that area, and it's rather a striking view of your beautiful capital. In order to enjoy the river, you first have to be able to see it. We initiated a project, Heartland Visioning made the first suggestion. We had a lot of undergrowth, a lot of overgrowth, a lot of volunteer trees that had frankly blocked the view and created some areas where some illegal activities could be hidden from the view of law enforcement. So with the help and encouragement of a lot of folks here in the community and the city government, with their arborist, we went in and actually trimmed it, and you can see the before and after. It's rather striking. You can actually see your river, and we think that's kind of a nice thing. Another important element along the river is what's been referred to for years as the Riverfront Park. It developed an Oregon Trail theme some years ago because the architects that were hired to do the planning, I think working with the community, discerned, I think appropriately, that the Oregon Trail crossed the Kansas River right here in Topeka. It was a major reason for the growth and success of Topeka's enterprise early on. And so the ability to develop that park is very important. It has received funding over the years through the transient guest tax. Chairman Fager and I made a presentation to the Transient Guest Tax Committee just yesterday requesting that they invest in this again. But we've also found some opportunity, and here's a rendering for those of you who may not have seen it, of what it could look like. And it's the idea is to commemorate that this is where the Oregon Trail crossed the Kaw at Pappan's Landing. It's right in the front yard of the Great Overland Station. It's right down the block from the emerging and extremely effective Noto Arts District. So you see the opportunity to have several major community features tied together with a beautiful large public open space where festivals, where activities, things in the Noto district that may need to grow a little bit and spill over can occur and do it in a setting that's historically significant. And one of the things that we have found is that because the Kansas River has been designated as a national water trails river, there's the opportunity to actually look for some funding to take care of this because it is an extraordinary historical site. The upstream weir, the one that provides water for the city of Topeka and Greater Shawnee County, is one that was built quite a number of years ago, back in the 60s, and it has a tendency to be very dangerous, and unfortunately it has caused a loss of life on more than one occasion. And so the city actually hired an engineering consultant out of Boulder, Colorado, to take a look at what would be required to retrofit that dam structure in order to make it safer, so that there would not be that hydraulic effect of pulling boaters in and not letting them out. And not only did that consultant come up with some ways to do that were very cost effective, but also at the same time to develop a whitewater chute where residents around the area here, as well as visitors from outside the community, would come and in essence play on the river right here in the middle of Topeka. That's the weir as it currently exists. This is the master plan that was developed, and this is the design that was recommended by the Riverfront Authority after some considerable study. That design was recommended by the Riverfront Authority to the mayor and city council. They last month approved and adopted that project as part of their omnibus capital improvement program. So it is now officially a project, and we are looking actively for funding sources, including U.S. Coast Guard has a program for boating safety and access. So we think this is the kind of project that will make this a much safer place on the river, and at the same time create tremendous recreational opportunities for the community. And that's the image when you're coming through a whitewater chute. So there's nothing stronger, I think, than an outdoor water feature to help rebrand a community. That sort of image speaks of community activity. It speaks of youth. It speaks of a community alive, and it's something very unexpected. And I think it's something that is certainly within the reach. The Riverfront Authority also is very aware of the desire to take the Interstate 70 viaduct through town, and KDOT is working on some plans to slightly realign that, change the nose geometry in a way that is much safer. I typically stay at the Ramada downtown and get on at about, I think it's 3rd Street or thereabouts. And my least fond feature in Shawnee County is what I refer to as Dead Man's Curve, where you have to get on the interstate and come up to speed with only a few hundred feet before you hit a solid wall. Meanwhile, there's 18-wheelers coming around this corner on only 9 of their 18 wheels, because they're going too fast. And I tend to reach for my rosary. So KDOT has this in their program, and I think what it presents is not only an opportunity to greatly enhance transportation safety and efficiency through the community here, but also to create an economic redevelopment zone, an opportunity, because when you have a much improved access to an area, it by its nature creates new opportunities. And we're encouraging the city to work with other layers of government, the county and the state, and certainly the Federal Highways Administration, to really take a look at this and take a broader view of, once the new facility is in place, once the parallel frontage roads, access roads are in place, how does the community envision this area developing? You already have a tremendous asset in the Kaw River State Park. It's one of, I think, only 2 urban state parks in the United States. And having a state park this close to a city, an urbanized area, is really a big asset. And you can see we didn't stage any of this. These are activities that have already taken place on your beautiful river right there. It's roughly, if you went north on Wanamaker till it ran into the river, there's where you would be, just north of 6th Street. So it's a tremendous facility. So, embracing your river and doing things with your river, kind of reclaiming your river, leads to a lot of opportunity. And so we've talked about historical preservation, we've talked about economic development, new development, we've talked about everything from recreational opportunities to housing opportunities to exercise and healthy lifestyles opportunities. So this is our work, this is what we do. We have frequently, Commissioner Bueller comes to our meetings, and we appreciate very much the county's participation. We are very mindful that although this Riverfront Authority was created by an act of the state legislature, it is a co-equal entity with both city and county, having 3 appointees to this 6-person panel that shepherds this cause. So we appreciate your support and welcome your guidance at any point. And if there are questions, we'd be happy to address them.
There are questions for Mr. Downs.
Quickly.
Commissioner Archer.
And thank you for coming this morning. The presentation was well done. I know you're talking to the city about transient guest tax funding. What other funding sources do you anticipate to make this a reality?
For the Riverfront Park?
Yeah, for the park.
Specifically?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
You want to talk about it, Chair?
Well, yes, we certainly do hope the transient guest tax will be renewed and part of it directed towards the riverfront, continue to be directed towards the Riverfront Park. Most of that property along there has already been acquired with money that's been accumulating over the past 12 years. Master plan has been designed, and there is still some money remaining in that fund, I understand. 2 weeks ago, tomorrow it will be, there was a representative from the National Park Service who works with the National Historic Trails program they have, specifically with the Oregon Trail. And she came to Topeka to look at the behest of Tom Ellis out at the Kansas State Historical Foundation to look at some sites west of Topeka, Uniontown and Plowboy, which were historic Oregon Trail towns and crossings, and to try to verify the authenticity of those and put them on. There's kind of a list of sites that are indeed Oregon Trail sites, and the National Park Service is interested in seeing those developed and signage and increasing tourism to all of that. But while she was here, I was able to get a bit of her attention and brought her over to the site where the proposed park will be, the Pappins Ferry crossing and landing, and to some interpretive signage we have at the Great Overland Station telling about this site. She knew about it because I had talked with her on phone, and she knew that she had verified that site is already approved. And what that means is that there are some grant programs available. Now, I do not know the full extent of what's available. What I do know is she put me in touch with the Landscape Architect Division, and I talked with them. They're based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they were very excited about this project. What they offer as a first step is to come to your community and conduct a design charrette where interested parties, stakeholders, would come together and discuss the park. We could work from the existing plan and then see how we can improve it. You know, the design was developed several years ago. There are some things that need to be changed, such as the addition of the Children's Palace and things like that. And then they have particular expertise in looking at a site to make it, as they say, the best visitor experience possible. So that ranges from the technical things such as how do you get there, and where's the parking that is, accessible to the site, to the interpretive signage, to activities that might take place there. And this is really a big help to a community, an expense that doesn't have to be borne by the community if they will come and do that and come up with a plan and some cost estimates as well. So that could be helpful. They're very forthcoming with money for signage, both directional signage to get you to the site and interpretive panels and signage at the site. I think there are some other grant programs beyond that. Those were the two that were first mentioned. I frankly haven't had time to research all of that. But, you know, and the good part of it is that they require matching funds for that, but we already have those matching funds designated to the park to work with the implementation. The program, as Pat mentioned, for putting maintenance roads on top of the levees, that counts as match money. It counts as match money for city or county, either one, to apply for additional grants, perhaps transportation enhancement grants for expanding the trail system. So we have a lot of different entities working that all can match each other by the magic of exponential growth of funding. So I think I'm very excited about it. I mentioned it at our Riverfront Authority meeting yesterday. Mr. Knight made a brief presentation, and I think I sensed enthusiasm on your part to participate in a design charrette, and I believe the little bit of feedback I've gotten from the city is they also would be interested. So that's something, if everyone approves, I will be happy to sort of move forward so we can get that
Very good.
scheduled at some.
Thank you,
at
thank
some
you, Beth, and you're fortunate that Mr. Knight's presentation was brief.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just might say that the conceptual plans are here, but that's it right now.
It's
the further design of the plan, cost estimates, land, all that sort of thing that
Yes.
needs to be in
Yeah,
it. This group
that's a very
can-
preliminary sort of plan.
Exactly.
And gives an
Exactly.
idea of how it might be developed.
Well, and I appreciate you appearing before the transient guest
Tax.
committee, tax committee, because I strongly support that tax
Right.
continuing to be targeted for this project.
you.
It's
Thank
been in the past, we need to complete it, and I strongly support that. And that tax does end this year.
At the end,
And
yes,
so that's why
End
there's
of the
so
year.
much discussion about it.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
exactly.
but-
So, yes, any help, support, advocacy, emails, talking to your
Well,
city
and-
council member,
Well, and
appreciate
you're
it.
right. And so if there's private investment that wants to talk to you about this, where do they go? Where do, website presence, contacting you as far as becoming part, and as you said, leveraging our dollars to make sure that we can
Right.
get this done.
Certainly, any private individuals, organizations who want to help support, contact me, contact Pat. Pat has established a river stakeholder group which meets quarterly, and it is open to anybody who is interested in riverfront development, whether they are stakeholders, property owners, love the river, canoeists, kayakers, funders. It is a wide variety of people. And it's a 1-hour meeting, and there's no obligation, but you will get notified about the meetings. And so that's a good way to get started. And then our Riverfront Authority meetings are bi-monthly, and they are open to the public. And we had a pretty full house yesterday, so we're going to move it out to the Division II office of Kansas Wildlife and Parks and Tourism, which is out at Kaw River Park and has a bigger venue for people to attend. So. And you know, the Riverfront Authority has purview over the river from county line to county line. So while we have a big concentration of focus in the downtown area, we're also interested in what happens along the river through the county. And Pat referenced the Kansas Water Trail, and that is an exciting program. And signage is going in along the Kansas River, the 175 miles of Kansas River, much of which is in Shawnee County. Signage is going up, beautiful signs with lots of information, community information, historical information, river information, at each boat access point. So right now they have 19 boat access points along that 174-mile stretch. The place missing is between Wamego and Topeka. And so the state is very actively involved with putting boat ramps in at, well, hopefully Willard. That would be a great thing. And there's one other,
Maple Hill.
Maple Hill, thank you. So those both are, I believe, in Shawnee County, And the tourism potential for that is huge. I think it's a great river to be on, and with the safety factor improved at the water treatment plant, it becomes very, very attractive. The potential for tourism on the Oregon Trail is also huge. So I think our community will benefit its own citizens, quality of life, but we'll see it become a great attraction to visitors from all over.
Well, we look forward to updates as things develop. Thank you very much for coming here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, our next item.
Unfinished business, number 1, consider approval of request to fill one finance officer position in the Shawnee County Health Agency at a salary including benefits of $73,167 and request to fill any subsequent positions that result from filling this position.
Morning, Commissioners. Allison Alejos, Health Agency. This is a item that was deferred so that Commissioners had some time to look at some information I had provided regarding a staffing plan and to really just evaluate the need for this position. And so I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have today.
Are there other questions or regarding this request to fill? Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I asked for this deferral to study the strategic plan and the personnel requests and so on. And I looked at the memo to ask for action, and it essentially says this position is responsible for managing the financial operations for the local health department and the community health center. And I guess that's where the confusion reigns, is that these are shared assets for the health agency as a whole, and yet there's going to be significant changes, we believe, at the 1st of 2016. And some of the information that you gave me, there was a 58-page strategic plan for the health agency for 2015 through 2017, and I don't know that that's going to be relevant or pertinent on a going forward basis. And I did look at a lot of the other information. It was voluminous. It was adequately confusing, and it's confusing to me. I did look at the Finance and Administration Department. There are going to be 11 slots, very focused on purchasing, payroll, maintenance, personnel. I don't know if there's an overlap in other departments within Shawnee County to address those. I did wanted to ask you what the Health Department Support Specialist is going to do, and when we get into budgeting, that will be.
Sure.
We've got a number of office assistants. I think you're going to be requesting new positions, 4 or 5 new positions. And I know other things that we're looking at is a force level study. I've asked our interim HR director to explore that, and I think, Jim, if you've got I think you were talking to some people last week about that. If you have anything to report on that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Kraut, Interim Human Resources Director. We did have an initial meeting with an individual who has prepared that type of study before. It went well, very informative. That was our first meeting. We've been prioritizing the other item that's on the agenda today, but along with what we're talking about today is that type of study, and we've started that. I don't have a lot to report in terms of conclusions yet, but I think it's doable, and just a matter of defining the scope of what you would like to do with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and we're asking a lot of you on an interim basis. But I think the big challenges for us for 2016 are going to make sure we're staffed right and that our staff is compensated right. Because we've got issues of attracting and retaining personnel, and we realize that. So I think those are going to be the big challenges for 2016. I would ask the chair his thoughts on this request.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Archer, I share many of the same concerns that you have regarding the overall plan for the health agency. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions as we're really charting into a new territory as we split apart the two functions, and we have the FQHC that's going to a private provider. And so we're really charting into new territory. And so I think that much as you, I have some questions about what the staffing levels are going to look like, how the chart is going to look like. Those would be budget questions as we go through the budget process. But the item that's before us today is as to the financial officer position. And I think that we're really at that position to where today we look at advertising and filling that finance officer. Is that something that we need now? Is that something that we'll need in the future? What's the alternative? If we choose not to fill this position, do we hire a temporary person to fill that position? Or are we able to fill that position or carry that load with what existing staff we have now? And I think that's the first question I was going to have for Director Alejos is, do we have the ability, should the board not fill that position, can your office pick up the load left by losing that officer?
I would say it would be very challenging for the upcoming year, especially in light of the number of changes that we have coming up. We are constantly in a position where we are evaluating our staffing needs. It's not something that we look at today and we forget about and then come back at budget time. We're constantly assessing that. And that would be no different from the staffing plan that was submitted to you all for your review. And of course, the budget, during the budget hearing, you'll hear a lot more about that. But I do believe that this position is a pretty critical position for the agency. Again, we have a $12 million budget and we have some very serious changes, significant changes coming up. And so, yes, I would say I think it's critical, and I don't know if Alice has anything she wants to add to that.
And I might add, the chief financial officer that was serving for the health agency and the health department, who recently departed, she prepared your budget. She did a lot of the oversight when it came to your accountings and billables, making sure
Correct.
that we captured fees for grants. And I know that with Director Weingartner, with the health department, making sure that we are able to get our matches and recoveries. And so just to kind of hear from how that loss has affected your area as well.
I'm also going to concur with what Allison is expressing and the importance of this position. There are a lot of activities that go on within our organization that are tied to our funding. And again, if we're not addressing those things appropriately, that can put us at risk for losing funding. And that's why having a strong finance officer and a strong financial office is so important. And so there's a lot of work that's still being done to look at how we separate. And we already have reduced staff in certain areas, and we've also reassigned duties in certain areas. And so now we would have to look at, again, adding more to what people are already doing.
Okay. Commissioner Archer?
Just one, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the split that we anticipate happening, where is this going to go, and is this going to continue to be with Shawnee County, or will it go with Grace Med?
This would be a local health department position, based on my plan. The complexity of the local health department, we have a variety of major funds and very many grants. We're very busy trying to make sure, as Alice indicated, looking at those matches, making sure that we've got everything aligned as it should be, policies, procedures. I mean, there's a whole lot of work that goes on. So even so, after we split, I would envision this finance officer coming to the county.
But right now, if I may, Mr. Chair, right now, it'll be a shared asset.
Correct.
So it would be a shared asset until any division, whenever that would occur. We anticipate roughly at the end of the year, as kind of rough timelines we've talked about, looking at the first of next year.
I think the thing to think about, though, too, is this is a position that's already in our budget, and so we're talking about what's going to happen from now until the split happens. And so
there is work that still needs to be done to continue the level of operations that we're at now.
But I think if I understand the concern of Commissioner Archer is, why hire on somebody if you're gonna turn around and in 5 months, let them go? Is that fair to the employee, and is that fair to us? Is that, I mean, Commissioner Archer, I don't know that.
Well, I mean, we're hiring a half-time person for local and half-time person for community. And as of the end of this year, we're gonna have a full-time person where they have half the duties that they had before.
I think.
And maybe that's an oversimplification, but that's the way I view it.
The duties of the finance officer, regardless of whether or not the community health center is there, still apply across the local health department. So there are things that are done in the agency that look like they're shared, but it's an agency-wide function. Whether the community health center is there, those functions will still occur.
But, if I may, but the rationale is that we're gonna provide, in splitting out community, we're gonna save money, we're gonna provide better service, we're gonna cover more people. That was the essence of the Safety Net Summit report, if I understand it correctly. So I don't, are we scavenging, or are we going after some of our savings now by continuing to hire personnel that we may still have at the beginning of the year?
If I may, the savings will come from the community health center side, and being able to serve more people. That's my understanding. My proposal would be that we fill this position, wait on filling any subsequent positions, because I think that some savings may come from who else that person is supervising. And so this is a pretty critical position in transition, to help you with the finances. So that would be my motion, to fill the position, but then come back to this body and during budget and have discussion about the rest of those people in that area.
Commissioner Archer,
I think that's an excellent idea.
is that a second?
Certainly is.
Motion made by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item.
Consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner Archer for approval of the consent agenda, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item.
New business, item A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
The vouchers are totaling $1,450,864.95. Of that, out of infrastructure and special assessments, a lot of materials for roads, $505,936.42. After that, some bridge construction, $269,684.22. And then we have 7 pages from Parks and Recreation reflecting the increased activity, $86,980.61. So with that, my questions have been answered. I have no further questions, so move approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Bueller for approval, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval of the correction orders.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Bond Council, number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2015-44, authorizing the defeasance of the single-family mortgage revenue bonds 2006 Series A1 through A6 and 2006 Series B1 through B2.
Good morning, Bob Perry, Bond Counsel. This resolution authorizes us to begin the process to market the securities, crunch the numbers to see if it's worth entering the market for any residuals, and basically gives authority to proceed should the residuals reach a level like they have in the past. We haven't crunched any numbers yet because under the new rules, Keith can't until he has authority to go.
This is also contingent upon Sedgwick County to a degree.
That's correct, Kevin. Sedgwick County will typically in the past will act only after we've acted, and so I put this on the agenda as early as I could.
So this is the starting point.
Correct.
Move to adopt the resolution.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Bueller to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Great, thank you.
Bob. Next item.
Item C, appraiser number 1. Consider approval of request to fill one vacant residential appraiser 1 position at a salary including benefits of $45,220.96.
Good morning, Commissioners. Steve Bauman, appraiser. We have lost one of our residential appraisers' existing position, and we are hoping to get that position filled. We've just, for the record, we've lost 10 positions in our department over the last 7 years. We were able to do that, creating some efficiencies, do more with less. A lot of that was due to budget cuts and concerns. We were, along with those efficiencies, we were fortunate enough to have a market that was stable or flat, and early signs this year are indicating that the market's going to increase, and with that, additional activities and additional workload is placed on us during those time frames. So, critical position for our office, and ask that we can replace the person that left.
I agree, Steve. Well said. I'll make it. Commissioner Archer?
Yeah, I was going to thank Steve, too. You did it just as we rehearsed it. But, you know, I keep talking about this force management study. The things that we need to look at are important. But I did notice, or note, that the appraiser's office has slashed staff over the last 5 to 10 years. And I know some of that is because of Orion and the implementation, but we still have judgmental things that need to be done by our appraisers, data collection and so on, that can only be done by people in those positions. So I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. This is in your 2015 budget, though,
Correct.
correct? So,
Correct.
thank you. Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Archer for approval of the request to fill the residential appraiser position, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you,
Steve.
Commissioner.
Next item.
Item D, Planning Department number 1. Consider approval of 25 fireworks stand applications for June 27th through July 5th, 2015, and authorization and execution of contract C-201, 2015 with Boomtown Fireworks due to separation distance.
Good morning, Commissioners. Anna Ortega, zoning administrator with the Planning Department. We received 25 applications this year, one more than last year. And there are no problems with any of them. We received $12,750 worth of fees, one of those being a late $250 charge for the late fee that I did incur for someone submitting a application late. So, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions regarding this? Well, I know many of the stands are renewals. It looked like there was only 3 new ones our first year.
Yes.
And so it's, I know this is a program that you work throughout the season on. It's worked on by yourself, the county engineer, the sheriff's office, and so there's a lot of people that go into this to ensure the safety of the consumers as well as the citizens surrounding the fireworks stands. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna just, these are only in unincorporated areas of the county,
Correct.
correct? So the other smaller cities may have stands and they go through those
Through
those governments,
their
yeah.
cities,
Yeah.
yes. And the city of Topeka
Topeka.
take their own also.
Okay, thanks.
I'll make a motion to approve the 25 fireworks stands that have been submitted.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Number 2, consider approval of final plat of Hoffman subdivision located at 4045 Northwest Davis Road in Rossville Township.
Barry Beagles, Shawnee County Planning Department. The Shawnee County subdivision regulations applies to any division of land into 2 or more parts. Now, there are two exceptions to that rule, one of which is land that is divided for agricultural purposes is not subject to a subdivision plat, and land which is divided that conforms to a minimum 3-acre parcel size with 200 feet of frontage on a public improved roadway. In this particular case, this parcel was split off in the year 2000 at the time where the subdivision regulations apply. The current tract has less than 3 acres and therefore does not comply with the plat exemption requirement on minimum acreage. Therefore, they have sought to establish a one-lot subdivision plat through Hoffman subdivision. It did appear before the Planning Commission was approved, and the plat is now submitted to the County Commission to accept any public dedications appearing on the plat.
Questions regarding the request for the Hoffman subdivision?
I'll move approval of the final plat.
Motion made by Commissioner Bueller for approval of final plat,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Approves 3-0. Thank you, Gary. Next item.
Item E, Public Works Solid Waste, number 1. Consider approval of KDOT 1302 form request for construction project for the Northwest 94th Street Bridge over Little Soldier Creek.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block with Public Works and Solid Waste. This is a Public Works item, and what this request is regarding is we have a bridge structure that's a fracture critical bridge up on Northwest 94th Street that we are looking to replace, and we want to submit this request for construction project to KDOT so that we can hopefully get get it into their program where we split it essentially 80-20% split, where they would pick up 80% of the construction engineering and contingency costs, and then Shawnee County, and also since this project is on the Shawnee County, Jackson County line, that the remaining amount, the remaining roughly 20% would then be split between the two counties based on our valuations, which is roughly 94% for Shawnee County and 6% for Jackson County. The cost of this project, I believe it's quite expensive. It's up in the, I think, $800,000 or $900,000 total project cost. So this is why we'd really like to get this into this program, because it could save us quite a bit of money if it's accepted by KDOT. So if there's any questions, and if we get accepted and as we further go down the line, we would bring in a project budget with specific numbers attached to them. But that just gives you in the range of the scope of the project we're talking about.
Questions regarding the request for application to KDOT?
Motion to approve the request.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Archer for approval of the request to submit application to the Kansas Department of Transportation, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Tom. Next item.
Item F, Parks and Recreation, number 1. Consider authorization and execution of Contract C 198, 2015 with Harvesters Community Food Network for operation of a luncheon meal program for children ages 1 through 18 from June 1st, 2015 to July 30th, 2015.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Knight, Parks and Recreation. As Ms. Otto just read, this is a contract between the Harvesters Community Food Network and Shawnee County to distribute free food especially to youth in our community. Be happy to answer any other question you might have. This they helped choose us. As you can see in my memo, Kansas is ranked 50th in the number of free food given out to the needy. One of the places that they think that kids tend to hang out and congregate is public parks, which is true. So it makes a natural fit together. If you have any specific questions about that, Randy Lou be happy to answer some of those.
John, I know that the Harvesters do so much good work in the community.
Sure.
This is one more opportunity for them to really reach out to the youth that maybe don't have the ability to have that necessity of just basic food at home. And I know this is a good program. I would strongly urge the support of it, and I would move for its approval.
I will second, and I know that there's a big push across the state of Kansas to
Move out of
we're
50th?
part of this. Yes, thanks for doing this.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider authorization and execution of Contract C 199, 2015 with the Great Plains Balloon Club, setting out responsibilities for the operation of the 2015 Huff and Puff Hot Air Balloon Rally with an estimated expense of $1,567 and revenue of $1,475 to the Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Foundation.
Commissioners, this is a special use contract that covers our work and work of the Great Plains Balloon Club to put on the Huff and Puff Hot Air Balloon Rally that's been in our community for many years. Be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Questions regarding this item?
Motion to approve the contract.
Second.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Archer for approval of the contract, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Next item.
Number 3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-200, 2015 with the Sertoma Great Topeka Duck Race Committee for the operation of the 2015 Sertoma Great Topeka Duck Race with expenses of $2,334 and revenue of $2,500 to the Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Foundation.
Commissioners, this is another special use contract which covers the Sertoma Club and Shawnee County's what we do to put on the Great Topeka Duck Race annually, which has been here for many years as well. Be happy to answer any other question you may have.
Any questions regarding this contract?
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Bueller for approval of the contract.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Archer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item G, Human Resources. Number 1, consider approval to solicit requests for proposals for a compensation study for Shawnee County.
Good morning again. Jim Crowell, Interim Human Resources Director. As Commissioner Archer alluded to earlier, this item seeks your approval to issue a request for proposals for a compensation study for our permanent positions. As the memo indicates, once the proposals are received, we're going to pay particular attention to the cost of the proposal. We know that's important, the methodology to be used, and anticipated completion date. We hope that we can receive proposals back that'll meet those 3 criteria so that it will be useful for you for 2016, for the budgeting and negotiation process for 2016. If we can do that, I'll come back once we receive the proposals and ask for approval to move forward with that. Beyond that, what we've already discussed, I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you might have about this item or the process.
How long, the RFP would be set June the 2nd?
Correct.
With a deadline for interested consultants to submit bids. How long do you anticipate the process takes should we have an applicant?
To start the study?
Yes.
Hopefully within a week to 2 weeks. I mean, this is something we have to prioritize and move very quickly to have a chance to complete this summer and still have time to meet with our bargaining units, and they're going to have to agree to be flexible with this through this process and allow us to receive this information.
And I guess that's really where I was getting to is this something that we're going to get back in time for us to consider during our budget and during our negotiations with our bargaining units?
We will try to. If that's one of the items that we're looking at that's very important when we review the proposals. If it doesn't look like we're going to have it in time for 2016, I'll report back to you, and we'll have to decide from there how we want to move forward. If we're not going to have it back in time, we'll move forward with our traditional sources of information that we've used in the past and do what we can, and we'll be able to obtain some good information. I'd prefer to have the study, but it just may not be doable with the amount of time that we have left. But there's no way to know until we try.
And I know that, Commissioner Bueller has stated at the beginning of the year that employees' wages and compensation is a key priority for Commissioner Bueller to look at as we approach the budget. That's been a priority for me, looking at our employee compensations, and for Commissioner Archer. How do we compare to other communities? How do we compare really apples to apples and, like communities? And so I think this is a key thing for having somebody who's qualified to do that study for us and to bring that information to us. Questions for this?
And I agree. I again, think our challenge is to look at force levels and to look at compensation. And even if we don't complete the study before we go into budget, this may be a 2 or 3 year process. If compensation levels are, we need to increase them dramatically, it may be a 2 or 3 year process, but this is going to be important, whether we have it in time for 2016 budgeting. It's going to be important for the out years, but we need this information to make good business decisions for our employees. So I'll make a motion to approve the request.
I'll second, but I might add that, Jim, you're doing this to see what's out there, some help. I mean, we have done this internally at times, and that's an option that we still have,
Yes,
dependent upon what kind of proposals we get back.
yes.
We still have that option if needed.
Yes,
But
we're-
this just tells us what's out there and
This is
some extra help.
it's a request for proposals. We're gonna see what detailed, and we're gonna ask for very specific detailed information as to the methodology and other information that'll be important to us.
Yeah.
And this is going to tell us how much it's gonna cost, anticipated completion date, you know, the amount of staff resources that'll be necessary to put into it, all the things that we're gonna need to know. So we can give you a good picture of what would happen and when it would happen and how much it will cost to make that happen moving forward.
Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Archer for the approval of a request for proposal for compensation study for Shawnee County. That's been seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes 3-0. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item H, Commission number 1, update on Willard Bridge project.
Commissioners, Tom Block once again with Public Works. Let me pull up my presentation here. This will be actually fairly brief today. Let's see if I can get out of theirs. There it is. Yeah, this presentation will be actually fairly brief because primarily last month, the focus has really been on design. There have been a few other items that have come up that some of them you're aware of and some of them I will brief you on today. Let's see here. Again, this is just a presentation outline that I had mentioned last month, and this will be the same process I'll go through probably each month. Is just give you an update on the inspection, weekly inspection updates, design updates, permitting updates, right-of-way updates, and so on and so forth. As far as the weekly inspection update, I'm happy to report that again, there's been no change in status of the condition of the bridge since last month, so we are still holding steady with the bridge. As far as design update, Finian term sheet is going full force on this design. I know he's got a number of staff that is working full-time on this, so they are just working as hard as possible to get the design complete, and so they are still estimating, as we were, that the completion date for design will be in July or August timeframe. As far as permitting update is concerned, Finian term sheet has submitted proposed plans to the Union Pacific Railroad. They have already responded and given us preliminary comments back, which we really appreciate their willingness and their effort in getting those comments back. So now Finian term sheet is taking those comments and incorporating them back into the formal, I guess, permit proposal. So that is moving along, and again, we do appreciate the Union Pacific Railroad working with us and Finian term sheet on that, because we know how critical that piece of the puzzle is. As far as environmental, we haven't done any additional work on those permits in this last month, and those are not quite as vital as the one with the Union Pacific Railroad. As far as right-of-way update is concerned, I'm not sure if I have the check box there, but on the northeast quadrant, they are still in the process of developing those right-of-way documents, but we have not had any formal discussions with the property owners on that portion. On the northwest quadrant, it's the same. In the southeast quadrant, as you're aware, we were able to reach an agreement with the major property owner, and that was approved by the commission here, I think it might have been Monday or last week. And then the other property owners in the southeast quadrant, we are still finalizing those, and we'll be having discussions with those folks. And again, on the southwest quadrant, those documents are being finalized, and we'll be getting those to Wabunsee County for them to acquire. As far as the utility update, there has been no change with utilities. We haven't done anything on that in the last month. Again, that's we're not too concerned about that. There's very minor utilities. Westar is the most major one, and as I mentioned before, we're hoping that plans are being made to have them connect to the bridge. As far as the funding update is concerned, still waiting for the legislative session, Kansas legislature to convene, and so there's been no information update on that. Same with the sales tax extension, the interlocal agreement. I know the city is I think internally discussing if they have any response to the interlocal agreement that was sent over by the commission. So there's nothing new there. Now on the Tiger Grant, as you're aware, we did submit our pre-application by Public Works to the USDOT on April 27th, and then the commission gave us approval to go out and receive or get assistance in the actual application in which we selected Parsons Brinckerhoff. We are in full force getting that done. That is a whirlwind of activity. They have we have a significant amount of staff helping us all throughout the firm. Probably, I'm thinking I've dealt with probably 8 different people now, and just gathering all kinds of information. And the final application deadline is June 5th, so we are working full steam ahead to get that completed. As far as the project schedule, we are still working towards our best case scenario, and hopefully we will be in a position to let it in December and begin construction early next year, so that has not changed. As far as any other items, I gotta work on my check boxes. Somehow I can't. Something's coming. KDOT has, as part of the Tiger Grant application, one of the important things is to demonstrate how much joint commitment there is to the project. So as part of that process, you get what's called letters of support. And Kansas Department of Transportation has indicated will be writing a letter that they are in full support of it, and they will actually, since it is federal funding, they are offering and have agreed to administer the grant if we are awarded a Tiger Grant. And that is, to administer those grants when they come through is not necessarily a simple thing, and they've got the staff and the expertise to do it, so they will do that on our behalf if we are successful. And also USD 321, the Caw Valley School District, has written a letter in support, and some other ones that are also Representative Jenkins' staff. We've been in communication with them. They are coordinating what we hope will be a joint federal legislation letter of support, and that, as I understand it, carries more weight than just an individual representative. So one of her staff members has been in contact with me, and we've been communicating, and he is trying to coordinate getting all the signatures from all our federal legislators. Then as far as Wabunsee County and Potawatomi County, we are going to be meeting with their county commissions on June 1st, so I actually won't be able to attend this meeting. We're going to be attending both. They have their meetings the morning of the 1st, myself and Mr. Flanagan and Phineas Termcheat and possibly some others. Maybe we'll be going up there and just giving them an update of where we are and requesting letters of support from them also. So we'll be doing that on June 1st. And then we're also in the process, we have or will be contacting these other agencies, and hopefully we'll be getting letters of support from them also, including our state and local delegates, Union Pacific Railroad, Westar, and also the Motor Carriers Association. We're working, hopefully we can get them to agree to provide those. As far as other items, this just came up yesterday, at least to me, was new. You may have read about it, I think, in today's paper regarding HB 2435, which there's apparently some, I don't know how much movement, but it's been thrown out there for discussion as far as the removal of tax exempt status for government. It said building projects. Now, I don't know exactly what building projects means. To me, I don't know if that means construction projects or if it means just construction of buildings. So I've got to figure out what that means. But if it's construction projects, and if this project were to all of a sudden become non-tax exempt, that could have a significant impact to the project cost if we're looking at if it's just state sales tax, or that's looking at maybe 6.5%, whatever it ends up being, and if other taxes, we could be anywhere from probably the $1.5 to $2.5 million of taxing ourselves. So I don't know where this is going to go, but I just want to put it out there that is out there, and we'll have to see where that goes from here. Other than that, I will stand for questions.
Are there questions for Tom regarding the update?
I have questions I might add in the letter of support section that I did forward Tom all the signatures that we received that were sent to the commission email. Hopefully you received those. I forwarded those to their office and to Jim Bobbin as well.
Great.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the Kansas legislature, if you always assume the worst, you'll never be disappointed. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I know we always wait for them to leave, so. Exactly. Thank you, Tom. Our next item.
Administrative communications.
Are there any administrative communications today?
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Rec. Do want to remind everybody our seasonal facilities will be opening Saturday. Again, since Mr. Knight was down here a couple weeks ago talking about the revolving fund and the weather, how it can affect, we've had nothing but rain for 2 weeks. I'm hoping that it affects all of our facilities, not only golf, but all the seasonal facilities. But we will be busy, we'll be open, and hopefully the weather will cooperate.
Thank you, Tom. Next item.
Morning, Commissioners. I just wanted to announce that on June 18th, we're going to be having the next Board of Health meeting. During that meeting, we'll be talking about things such as immunizations. It's a very important time of the year for that discussion. Also getting some updates on what's going on with our fetal infant mortality review program, community health needs assessment, as well as some of the community health improvement activities. And that meeting's immediately following the Board County Commissioner meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, Rich Eckert, County Councilor. I want to follow up with what Tom Block brought to your attention. The legislature basically has to find $422 million quick, fast, and in a hurry. That's the number that they put out on Friday. And of course, the one that Tom just talked about is of great interest to us. The other one that is floating out there is the bill, Senate Bill 259, that alters how motor vehicle taxes are figured. And this one lowers the appraised value of vehicles, and then I believe it also lowers how they calculate what that tax is. And it dramatically lowers the value. It's phased in, but when it's done, it'll lower the valuation of a car, truck of about 40%. So it's quite a hit to us. And of course, for counties, it's a great source of revenue, and it's one that we can't make up with anything else other than property taxes. And again, back to Tom's bill, I'd like to refer to it as Tom's bill.
No.
And everything I've read, by the way, it's towards buildings. It's not towards infrastructure projects. But again, this is all subject to change. Exactly. This is something that was filed yesterday, and they had a hearing. I mean, that's how fast this stuff moves. Fortunately, the Kansas Association of Counties lobbyists was able to get over there, as well as the League of Municipalities, and testify on the bill. So they're the two lobbyists that, on behalf of locals, they're over there every minute watching for stuff like this. So what I would like to do on these two bills is to use my office and do an email and a phone campaign to our local legislators, letting them know how we feel about this issue. So I'm asking your permission to do that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Okay.
we need to hear, we need
That's
to
a
hear.
good idea.
And of course, we're not meeting, I believe, next week at all. We don't know what bill will pop up out of the blue, so if something else comes along that affects our revenues, I'm going to just go ahead and do that and apologize to you later. So,
Can I ask a question, please? So the reduction of the value of automobiles would actually be a shift from personal property to real property,
that's.
all
yeah.
other things being equal?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's correct. That's how we would make up for it.
Okay.
It actually raises a bit of money for the state that they're not currently getting. That's why it's kind of popular. The person who pushes this every single year put in a little kicker to take some of the money from us and give it to the state of Kansas while still dropping taxes on vehicles. So there's a little bargaining going on in plain view, I might add, to try to get this passed. And traditionally, this hasn't had a lot of steam behind it, but what happened is that they rolled this into another bill in the House. They rolled it into House Bill 2109, and that one very much has life. So that's why it's a fear that we haven't had in years past, even though this bill has existed for several years.
And
Thank you,
I
Mr.
might add, Mr. Chair, that Kansas Association of Counties does estimate that losses as high as $3 million in Wyandotte County and $9 million in Johnson County.
And we're going to be somewhere in the middle of that.
Exactly.
We're going to be more than Wyandotte, but not as much as Johnson.
Right.
Well, Rich, when you go to the legislature to advocate, you might let them know that the Powerball is currently at 138 million with an 86.3 cash value, and so they might suggest buying some lottery tickets.
We might buy some, actually.
Thank you for your update. I see follow up our treasurer.
Good morning, Commissioners. Larry Moss, Shawnee County Treasurer. I guess I might as well just pile on to this. This week, we were informed that the state has finally made a decision to stop sending renewals for motor vehicles. They will send the renewal forms out for July, but August going forward, there will be no renewal forms. It will be in the form of a postcard. I tell you this recognizing that as the motor vehicle agent for the state of Kansas, I need to make some decisions about whether we're going to send renewals in lieu of the state. I have 8 days to make that decision. I have to tell them by the 29th. I will prepare a memo outlining this for you all. And I tell you this because I would like to have your input about my decision before I finalize the decision, because it has the potential to have a great impact on our customer service and perception of service that Shawnee County as a whole provides for our taxpayers. So I will get that memo to you in the next day or so. You'll not be meeting next week. If you would give me your thoughts before I finalize the decision, I would very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Bueller? Commissioner Archer?
Just to wish everyone an enjoyable Memorial Day weekend, and please be safe. And that's it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On that note, we do not have a meeting scheduled for the Monday, it being Memorial Day, and then we have previously canceled the meeting for the 28th. So we will not be meeting next week, and so our next scheduled meeting will then be on June the 1st. So, next item.
Executive sessions?
There is none, so we are adjourned. See you on June 1st.